Good morning, children. Welcome back to the lesson in the Kingdom of Fools. Already we have one session on it. Today we will continue with the story. Before that, let us make a recap of what we have discussed already. So the story begins with the foolish king and the ministers. And again the visit of that kingdom by a guru and a disciple, and they were surprised to see that people were sleeping during daytime and doing their work at night time. Why? Because the king has decided to change night into day and day into night. Even animals were taught how to sleep during daytime. So another interesting thing in that kingdom is everything is available on one do. So the disciple wanted to continue living there, but the guru left the place saying that what they would do next nobody could predict. Okay. So one day in that kingdom, a merchant's house was burgled by a burglar. And while doing so, the burglar made a hole on the wall, okay, in order to sneak in the house. Then suddenly the wall collapsed and killed the burglar. So his brother made a complaint to the king asking for compensation. And the foolish king wanted to make an inquiry about this case. First of all, the king called the merchant, but merchant said it was not his problem. It was constructed at his father's time and was done by a bricklayer. So the king thought the bricklayer could be the culprit. So the king called the bricklayer, but bricklayer said it was not his mistake. He could not pay attention to the wall because there was a dancing girl who disturbed him. So the king thought, okay, dancing girl could be the culprit. But when dancing girl was brought to the kingdom, she said she had her own story. I think here we stopped. Okay. So shall we continue? Yeah. Yeah. We are at page number 22. She thought for a minute and said, "My lord, wait. I know now why I was walking up and down the street. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel. He made so many excuses, and he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. He made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times." So this dancing girl, by now she is a old lady, complained that it was not her mistake, it was the mistake of a goldsmith, because she had given some work to the goldsmith and the goldsmith was not completing her work in time, and that goldsmith made her walk up and down that place. So that time only this bricklayer happened to meet her or happened to see her. So it went like that, she said. Yeah, so it is the fault of the goldsmith. Poor thing, she is absolutely right. The king easily believed and immediately called for that goldsmith. Yeah, weighing the evidence, he said, "We have got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding at once." The king's bailiffs, you know who the bailiffs are? Bailiffs means an official. Okay, you can write down, children. The bailiff, you can write down. The officials in a court is called bailiff. Here the king's bailiff searched for the goldsmith, who was hiding in a corner of his shop when he heard the accusation. What is accusation? The charge of doing wrong. Okay, write down. Charge of doing wrong. Is it clear? Yeah. The accusation against him. He had his own story to tell. when the goldsmith was brought to the kingdom, he had his own story to tell. My lord, he said, I am a poor goldsmith. It is true I made this dancer come many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's order. They had a wedding coming and they wouldn't wait. You know how impatient rich men are. Okay, what is the story narrated by the goldsmith? Actually, he made that lady come to his home many a time only because he was doing the work of a rich man's work, rich merchant's work. Okay, here it is there, rich man's order. So he was doing with this rich man's order. So he made that girl walk up and down. And who is the merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry? Made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him. Can you name him? Immediately the king wanted to know who that rich merchant. Can you please tell the name? The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. So dear children, this is a surprising thing. Who was that rich merchant? He is the real owner of that house. Okay, the present merchant is his son. Now justice had come full circle. Immediately king declared, okay, justice has come full circle. Okay, yeah, justice had come full circle. Who said? The king said, had come full circle. Thought the king back to the merchants when he was rudely summoned. Rudely means roughly summoned, called. Back to the court he arrived crying, it wasn't me but my father who ordered the jewelry. He is dead, I am innocent. When the original merchant was called once again, he said, no, it was not my fault. It was my father who ordered the jewelry. He is dead and I am innocent. He wanted to say that he is innocent. But the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively. What do you mean by decisively? All of you write down. With determination. Decisively means with determination. It is pronounced decisively. It is true your father is the true murderer. He is dead, but somebody must be punished in his place. You have inherited. What do you mean by inheriting? Receiving things from your parents on their death. You have inherited everything from the criminal father of yours, his riches as well as his sins. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the root of this horrible crime. You must die. Finally, king decided this merchant should be killed as a punishment or should be sent to the execution. Right? Actually, the original merchant was not alive. But since this present merchant inherited everything from the father, according to the king, this present merchant is the murderer. And he ordered a new stake to be made ready for the execution. As the servant sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. He appealed to the king's common sense. The king too worried about it. Okay, then finally what happened, dear children? The king ordered, okay, this man should be killed. So they wanted to make the execution. What is execution? Official killing of a person by law. Okay, and they made a stake. You know what is a stake? A sharp, let me draw here, a sharp stick like a thing like this, and a person will be here a stick like this thing and impaling. Okay, all of you write down the word meaning impaling. What is impaling? To run a sharp stick through someone's body. All of you write down. To run a sharp stick through someone's body. That is called impaling. So you can see a person can be impaled here. Okay. Like this. A person can be impaled like this. It occurred to, and finally, when the stake was ready, the ministers felt this criminal. Who is the criminal? The merchant is very slim man. What is slim? Thin. And the stake is somewhat big. So they wanted a fat person to be executed. So the minister and people appealed, requested the king. Okay. The king too worried about it. What shall we do? He said, when suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to, that, okay children, do you mark it? A man fat enough to fit the stake they want. The servants were immediately sent all over the town looking for a man who would fit the stake, and their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on bananas, rice, wheat and ghee. This is very interesting now. Actually, these people, the king's official bailiff, were in search of a fat man. Finally, their eyes fell on a person. Do you know who is that fellow? Yes, our disciple who was by then very fat on eating bananas, rice, wheat and ghee. Okay, shall we continue? What have I done wrong? I am innocent. I am a sannyasi, he cried. Immediately, the disciple was much worried. He was crying, I am innocent, I am innocent, I am a sannyasi. That may be true, but it is the royal decree that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake. They said, okay, it is the order of decree. What is decree? Order. Decree means order of the king, that they should find a fat man enough to be fit to the stake. They said, and carried him to the place of execution. Okay, he remembered his wise guru's words. This is a city of fools. You don't know what they will do next. While he was waiting for death, he prayed to his guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry wherever he was. The guru saw everything in a vision. He had magic powers. He could see far. He could see the future. He could see the present. He could see the past. He arrived at once to save his disciple, who had got himself in such a scrape through love of food. Okay, children, what happened to the disciple now? He is in a trap. What kind of trap he is in? He is selected by the bailiff and the ministers because he was fat enough to fit the stake. But suddenly the disciple remembered the words of his guru. What did his guru say one day? These people would change their rules anytime. They are all fools. But the guru could see the past, the future, the present. He is a visionary. He can see the future. He has magic powers, So immediately he came to rescue his disciple. So I think better we stop here for the day. Okay, children. Now we'll stop here and let us make a review of what we have learned today. So today we started with the dancing girl's explanation that she was not at fault. It was the fault of that goldsmith. But when goldsmith was summoned, he said, again he was not at fault. It was the mistake of a rich merchant who gave him big order, and the rich merchants generally wouldn't have much patience. So finally, when the king sent for the rich merchant, they came to know that the rich merchant was no one but the present merchant's father. So when the present merchant was called, he said it was not him but his father. Father was responsible, but he was dead and he was no more. But the king said, since the merchant got everything from his father, not only richness, even what you call wealth, everything, he was responsible. And immediately the minister and people prepared a steak, but steak remained what you call very fat, and they wanted a rich fat man to be executed. So they went in search for a person who was fat enough. Okay. So finally they reached that disciple who was very fat by eating rice, wheat and ghee. Okay, that's it. And he pleaded saying that he is innocent and he is a sannyasi, he be spared, but they were not ready to spare him, saying that it was a royal decree, they have no other go. Finally, the disciple remembered his wise guru and his words, and guru, being a visionary, could see the future, past, present, immediately reached the spot. Here we will stop today, dear children. Make a thorough reading and write down all the word meanings, and also with the question and their answers. And with one more session, we will conclude the chapter. Thank you. Bye.